Jensen Huang is a sharp guy. Surely they have information the rest of us do not. Like as far as maybe 3-year, 5-year, 10
Are you
predictions.
suggesting that Jensen Huang knows more about NVIDIA investments than the AI fix, Corey?
I know that is a
I'm
real...
not having that.
The AI fix, a digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake.
Hello and welcome to episode 92 of the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name's Mark Stockley and I'm joined again by the wonderful Corey Noles. Corey, how are you? It's been a month.
I'm great, man, and glad to be back.
Well, it's very good to have you back. We had some great feedback about your first appearance, and I'm happy to say you are the first guest host to make a comeback.
I love it. I'm honored.
You're in rare air.
I'll take it.
Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about why smarter AI models might make messier mistakes. And Corey, you've got a treat for us, haven't you?
I do. I'm going to talk about a ridiculous thing I just attempted with Codex. Basically, I've had it building me a small language model.
So hang on, you've had an AI building an AI?
Yes, exactly that.
Okay, well that feels like a terrifying plot to a sci-fi movie, so I can't wait for that. But first, the news. Block CEO lays off 4,000 people because AI.
Reddit sues Perplexity for industrial-scale AI scraping.
OpenAI raises $110 billion in largest private funding round ever.
And the bullshit benchmark.
So, Corey, Jack Dorsey has fired 4,000 people from Block, which is a massive surprise to me because I had barely heard of Block. I had no idea that they had 10,000 people working for them, but they do. So Block used to be known as Square, and Jack Dorsey would like you to know that he's fired 4,000 of his 10,000 employees because of AI.
And he did it on Twitter.
Didn't he go off to start Blue Sky?
That was Dorsey.
And he announced it on Twitter. I mean, I guess he did own it for quite a long time, didn't he? Back when Twitter was the thing where you were just supposed to tell people that you were eating your lunch.
Yes.
Before it turned into this racist political mess that it is now.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's quite the cesspool these days. To be fair, it's always been a bit of a cesspool. It's just louder.
Yeah, now the cess is shinier and more obvious now than it used to be. Anyway, you might think that Block laying off 4,000 people means that this company is in serious trouble, but no! Block is in fact in rude health. Dorsey says intelligence tools paired with smaller and flatter teams are enabling a new way of working. Well, not for 4,000 people, it's not. And reportedly, he made the decision after seeing, quote, an order of magnitude improvement in the latest AI models back in December. And he's right about that. This is something I keep saying to people. AI, and not just me, I mean, I've seen other people say it too, but something definitely happened in December. There was a real ChatGPT moment.
Yeah, there was. And the truth is, those models, we've gone from like part of 2025, the jumps felt really incremental. And then somewhere, I'm going to say it started around Gemini 2.5 Pro. And then we nudge up into, I think it was GPT 5.2. And suddenly the jumps started getting big again, where it's much more noticeable and a bigger impact.
Do you think that was down to any one particular attribute? Because I know that the amount of time that AIs can work unsupervised is doubling very rapidly now. It's every few months. And I think that in particular has a massive effect on people's ability to use AI to just go off and do things.
It does. And there are two other things that happened in December, in my opinion. One of which is the Claude Code craze started then.
Yes.
People are using it for a variety of things and realizing what a cool tool this is. You don't just have to be a developer. And simultaneously, though, Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.2 both focused on something new. Like it wasn't all about coding with these models all of a sudden. Now, there's tests like GDPval that are assessing real work tasks for normal knowledge workers.
Oh.
And I think that this push in that makes it feel a lot better because more people can notice. They see it in different fields. They see it on spreadsheets more than they used to, and things like that.
Well, that's why we have you on the show, Corey. That was fantastic. Anyway, I was talking about Block. So, Jack Dorsey, he is squarely putting all of these layoffs in AI's wheelhouse. Now, notably, an Oxford Economics report from January found that many layoffs that CEOs blamed on AI were actually the result of overhiring during the pandemic.
Sam Altman brought this up recently in a conversation about, that there are a lot of cuts that were maybe needed cuts regardless of AI.
But that's a lot of people to lay off in one go.
So many.
But the really spicy part here, Corey, is what Dorsey said next. So he told his staff, within the next year, I believe the majority of companies will reach the same conclusion and make similar structural changes. And he added that he'd rather do it honestly and on his own terms than be forced into it reactively, which is a lovely sentiment if you're the billionaire in charge, but perhaps not if you're one of the 4,000 people on the end of the layoffs.
Yeah, that's very true. And, I don't necessarily think he's wrong. The things that have happened in the AI space in the last 90 days, there's Claude Code, there's Codex, there's OpenClaw, and, all of the other 1,800 claws that are floating around now. And all of these are a level of agentic we haven't been yet, and they're still becoming user-friendly. Right now, with the exception of Claude Cowork, these are mostly still in the hands of slightly more technical people, but I don't think that's going to last very long, and I feel like as soon as that makes its way into the workplace consistently for normal people, that's where we're going to see a real impact.
So, Reddit is suing Perplexity AI and 3 other companies for what it calls industrial-scale scraping of its users' comments. The lawsuit also names Lithuanian data scraping company Oxylabs, a web domain called AWM Proxy, which Reddit describes as a former Russian botnet. I don't know how you become a former botnet. If you're not a botnet anymore, what are you? Anyway.
Did they retire?
Yeah. Maybe it was part of a botnet. Anyway, that's not very reassuring. And then also there was the Texas-based startup SERP API, which helpfully lists Perplexity as a customer.
Ooh.
Reddit alleges the defendants masked their identities, hid their locations, and disguised their scrapers to hoover up Reddit content. Not just directly from Reddit, but by scraping Reddit posts out of Google search results. Now, the fun part is that Reddit even set a trap. This is very much up your street, Corey. They created a test post that was only visible to Google's crawler, and within hours, it appeared on Perplexity's search results. Naughty, naughty.
Ooh.
The reason that Reddit is annoyed, of course, is that it's already struck licensing deals with OpenAI and Google to use its data. So from Reddit's perspective, the front door is open and there's a price list. But Perplexity allegedly chose to climb in through the bathroom window. Perplexity, of course, denies the allegations, saying it doesn't directly scrape Reddit, but aggregates publicly available web data, which is a bit like saying it didn't steal your data, but it did find a photocopy of your data, and it stole that. All's fair in love in AI, Corey.
It is, and one day there's going to be just a series of fantastic spy thrillers about this era. I am convinced. We've got theft, we've got espionage, we've got backhandedness and weird deals and governments, and man, there's a great movie in this somewhere.
Do you think they're all banking on the fact that they're just going to get away with it? Like, by the time the lawsuits actually come around, the winners are just going to be these giant multi-trillion-dollar companies?
Honestly, I don't think they care at all. I really think that they see the prize at the other end of this as so massive and so big that it's a small cost to pay. And, it's really interesting to see how this has come together, because there's been all of this debate around, essentially everyone swiped some kind of data.
Yeah.
In one form or another. Like there's not really anybody, there may be, and if there is, I apologize to them ahead of time, but who ethically sourced all of the data in their models that is at the frontier edge of things right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think they could have been if they had.
Yes, I agree with that. I was talking a couple of weeks ago with our guest Mercedes Bent, and we were discussing whether or not it's fair to criticize companies like DeepSeek for distilling models that have themselves stolen data in order to exist.
We stole that fair and square.
OpenAI, which needs a bit of cash, has just raised, wait for it, $110 billion in a single funding round, proving that numbers no longer mean anything, Corey.
That's exactly right.
This is the largest private funding round in history and one of the biggest numbers I've ever read out. And it values OpenAI at $730 billion. The investors are Amazon with 50 billion, SoftBank with 30 billion, and Nvidia with 30 billion, but not Microsoft for a change. Now, these deals are never simple. It's not just like Amazon turns up with a wheelbarrow full of cash. So as part of the deal, OpenAI's models will be available on Amazon's Bedrock platform, and OpenAI is apparently committed to consuming $100 billion worth of AWS compute over the next 8 years. So Amazon is spending $50 billion now to get $100 billion back later, which sounds like OpenAI, which already has spending commitments in the order of $1.4 trillion, has just added another $50 billion to its obligations.
Yeah.
I mean, what's another $50 billion if you need to find $1.4 trillion behind the sofa?
It's all monopoly money, Mark.
And then, speaking of monopoly money, there's Nvidia, which is already OpenAI's biggest customer. It has invested $30 billion. So Nvidia is investing $30 billion in the company that buys its chips. Is it not paying that company to buy its chips?
That's a great question. I think the key is that Nvidia walks out with equity regardless. And I think at its core, that's what they want. And the truth is, Nvidia is a big company. They're as deep can get into the GPU market.
Yep.
And it is absolutely in their best interest for companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, to be strong and to be able to continue to scale long-term, because they know that as this gets bigger, that GPU load's going to get higher. They're building out data centers. They're going to have higher demands and need replacements all the time. It's a smart move. Makes a lot of sense. Is it a little weird? Yeah. But I can't blame him.
When we talk about the AI bubble, this is, I think, is the thing that makes me most convinced there might be a bubble, because this feels very credit default swap-ish. For those of us who were around for the financial crash in 2008, it's the sort of layering and layering of financial obligations on top of each other that just makes everything so much worse when it unwinds.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a financial analyst, but this does rather ring a bell for me in that way.
Well, the one thing I have taken a little solace in is that, and maybe this is a little naive, but I'm going to say it anyways, I don't believe any of these are foolish, careless people as a general rule. Like Jensen Huang is a sharp guy. Surely they have information the rest of us do not. Like as far as maybe 3-year, 5-year, 10
Are you
projections.
suggesting that Jensen Huang knows more about Nvidia investments than the AI fix, Corey?
I know that is a
I'm
real,
not having
that is
that.
a significant call out there. I know, and I'm sorry I said that about your show, Mark. But I really feel like there's knowledge we're not seeing that is driving this, and I'm cautiously optimistic that it's not reckless.
Yeah. Do you think they're just asking ChatGPT?
Should we invest in OpenAI? ChatGPT is like, hell yes, you should.
And finally, there's a new benchmark for large language models, and it's called, and I should stress that this is the actual official name, the bullshit benchmark. It was created by Peter Gostev, and the idea is beautifully simple, Corey. So instead of testing whether an AI can answer hard questions correctly, it tests whether an AI can spot that a question is nonsense and refuse to answer it. So the benchmark consists of 100 carefully crafted prompts across 5 domains, so software, finance, legal, medical, and physics. They sound perfectly reasonable, but are in fact complete rubbish.
One of the most interesting things about this is that it was extremely hard to teach AI to speak. But teaching it to shut up has proven to be a much, much more difficult challenge.
Well, this presumably is something to do with the way that they're trained.
Yes.
So training rewards completion rather than restraint. We covered this several episodes ago when we were talking about these AI companies trying to stop sycophancy. So basically, users don't like uncertainty. They think if they meet a model that says, well, we don't know, they're dealing with a bad model, rather than if the model just gives them a completely made-up answer that sounds really good, then they're like, oh, I'm dealing with a clever model.
Yeah, it's actually the smartest thing a model can tell you is, I don't know.
Yeah. Now, extraordinarily, the top 9 models on the bullshit benchmark leaderboard are all made by one company that you mentioned just now, and it's not OpenAI, and it's not Google. And it may appear as a sponsor of this show in just a few minutes' time. Anyway, the creator's argument is that building systems that know when not to answer is just as important as building systems that can. And that is very hard to argue against.
I agree. This is a thing that's been an issue for quite some time. Like, part of the problem people have with using AI, especially newcomers, is that it's really good at giving you a smart sounding answer, even when it doesn't know anything. And the interesting part of that is, so are we. Have you ever walked into a meeting and been asked a question? It's pretty rare to hear a human in a meeting be like, I have no idea, Bob. That's just not how we operate. Mark, I did a weird thing this week. So let me tell you the saga here. The other night, I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, I'm using Codex, and I'm working on, I can't even remember what I was working on because I haven't gone back to it since this moment.
So Codex is the AI for writing computer code from OpenAI.
It's basically their Claude Code equivalent. Both of them are great. I use both pretty regularly, and there are things I like in each a little more than I like in the other. The truth is, what I do is I have a $20 subscription, and when one tells me I can't talk anymore, I go to the other. I pay for a lot of AI, and I can't afford everyone's $200 subscription. So I got this cybersecurity block that came up.
What do you mean you got a cybersecurity block? So you were trying to do something, and it went, Corey, stop trying to make a nuke.
Yes.
Okay.
I was not trying to do that. However, I still don't, just so you know, and I still haven't. But I was working on something, and come to find out it was a Codex error that was not supposed to have occurred. Like, it happened to a lot of people.
Right.
And essentially what it did was, our new cybersecurity feature has determined that you might be working on something unsafe, and we are going to stop you until it is manually reviewed. And I was like, well, that stinks. But it also gave the little call signal for the model there. And the model was like GPT 5.4 AB-0301- I can't remember the full string.
Hang on, didn't 5.4 come out yesterday?
Yes. And this was 2 days before that. So I immediately was trying to decide, is this a better model? Because, there's been a lot of rumors around this model that, like, this is something pretty different. This is, in some ways, a significant step. So I asked it the most ridiculous question I could come up with at that moment. And that was, hey, think you could build another AI? Sometimes you ask the dumb question. You never know what happens.
I had a bunch of dumb questions running through my head, which I now realize were really dumb.
Here's the kicker, though.
There's another level of dumb. Your dumb questions are not dumb at all, Corey.
Here's the kicker, though. It's like, well, I mean, not a frontier model. I can't, like, build you a data center and all of that, but I could definitely build you a small one. And I was like, so tell me about it. How would you do that? And then it runs me through this plan. And because I am not, as I announced last time, a software engineer, I also am not a machine learning specialist, engineer, PhD, or any of those things.
Yeah.
So what I did was said, go for it, and hit enter. And it started doing things.
So I have slung together a few neural networks, and my neural networks had, I would say, tens of neurons. How many did yours have?
Okay, right now, here's where we're at. I started at 4 layers, really, really tiny, single transformer, just trying to prove, does this concept work?
Yeah.
And then we ran through a few rounds of training, testing different things. By the way, my only answers in here are like, sure, go for it. Yeah, trust your gut, Codex. Things like that. Like, I'm absolutely trying my best not to impact it other than saying, cool.
You're just offering uncritical encouragement.
I am non-critical encouragement.
There's a whole school of teaching around this idea that children actually don't need a teacher. They just need a grandmother who says, that's great, go and do some more. So that's what you're doing. You're grandmothering this AI.
Yes.
So 4 layers is basically a layer of neurons attached to a layer of neurons, attached to a layer of neurons, attached to a layer of neurons.
So what you should know is from there, we progressed up.
Okay.
We made it to 6, then we made it to 8, then we made it to 12, and now I have a 16-layer small language model that operates on my desktop.
Mm-hmm.
It's dumb as a box of rocks, but it strings coherent words together in a thing that resembles a sentence. Right now, while we're having this call, it's doing its first round of conversational training. So it hasn't done that yet. But right now, what we're at, 16 layers. And think of layers as like multiple passes of editing a document. We have 8 attention heads. which is like 8 people reading the same sentence, but each of them noticing something a little different or looking at it from a different angle. Embedding size 768, which lets the model capture a little more nuance. Now, this is still tiny compared to anything you'll try in the real world.
Yeah.
Context window of 512 tokens. If you're not familiar with like what the context window is think of how many words can fit on a whiteboard while you're solving a problem.
Yeah, and a token is a bit of a word, is the best way to think about it.
So we've built 4 different tokenizers as part of this project now.
I like how you're taking some credit for this. You're literally the guy there going, do you want a coffee? You're like, yeah, we've done this. Yeah.
Crank that GPU up there, buddy. But right now we're at 126 million parameters. We've trained on
Sorry. I feel like you've just glossed over a very large number there.
126 million parameters. So far, we've done about 3 billion tokens in training on my Dell Pro Max desktop. The goal is to get to like GPT-2 small scale on a desktop with one person and his coding agent.
Wow. So when did GPT-2 come out? Because GPT-3 is when I really started to notice people talking about AI. I feel like it was 2019.
Before 3.
Well, yes. GPT-2 came out before GPT-3.
Yes, not before OSS.
This is the quality we get from you, Corey, when you don't have your AI doing the work.
That's right. This is real raw Corey you've got today. I apologize. But it's really interesting. So what we've been doing is as this goes through these processes, now...
Sorry, can I just say I was right? 2019, Wikipedia confirms it.
Excellent. It must be true then.
Yep.
All right. And, sorry. So, like, here's the thing is, through this now, after we got through, like, the first 2 nights of running training rounds, the next thing I did was set up a scheduled, like, cron job to go and check if a training run is done, and if it is, to feed it through Codex and let it assess it real quick and determine if it should send another one through. That way it can train while I sleep. And in addition to that, we've been bumping up the vocab size. And essentially your vocab in your tokenizer, what it's doing is like, you can have this many unique tokens. And for the English language, 4,096 is really, really not enough. So we've now upped that to 8,000 and we're looking at 16,000. It's going to run a test.
So let's just clarify some of those terms for people. So the tokenizer has a vocabulary of up to 16,000 tokens.
Yes.
So basically, it knows something like the 16,000 most commonly occurring tokens.
Correct. And the reason you want it to be a high number like that is because instead of strawberry being a token or straw and berry being a token, you want STR to be a token because it can take STR and use it all over the place. There's much more it can do with there. It gives it additional flexibility in its actual vocabulary.
Yeah.
And, everything you do that makes the model bigger and wider or deeper or that adds additional vocabulary in your tokens makes that training go slower and slower. So we started by introducing just one data set, tiny stories, which is, really, it's tiny stories. Like the girl's name is Lily and she goes to the park. She likes it. So we started with that and it didn't tell those stories well at all. So we upped it and upped it and upped it until we were running like 100,000 passes, I want to say.
So just to break this down for people, what you're saying is you've got a collection of tiny stories.
Yes.
And your training run is stuffing the stories in one end.
Yes.
And then when you're done training, you test it by saying, can it now write stories to a sufficient standard?
Correct. The answer was no. Absolutely not. Not to any standard, because one data set on one teeny tiny model was not enough. So what we've done is we started introducing other data sets and blending them together. Like maybe now we've got 3 data sets and at like a 3-to-1-to-1 ratio, or maybe it's 5 data sets and you've blended in a certain amount of like Wikipedia, a certain amount of those tiny stories, a little bit of conversational behavior, a little bit of all of these different things, and you blend them into these bigger runs, and then you run it and you see what's the loss like. And if the loss is less, cool, keep pushing. And if the loss is worse, try another route. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is that when this started, it was running on my CPU. It didn't recognize my GPU. And I said, Codex, I don't understand why you're running on the CPU here. And it said, you don't have a GPU.
Yeah.
And I said, I have an RTX 4000. And it said, oh, can I install CUDA? And I'm like, sure, go for it. And it installed CUDA. And then it started, and the runs it started doing had my GPU at like 7% usage.
So GPUs are graphics processing units that are much, much, much better at doing the parallel maths that happens during AI training.
Correct.
And AI inference.
Yes.
So it's working in parallel, whereas the CPU works in series, and it's just much quicker.
Exactly. And we're now keeping it pretty dimed, if I'm honest. If it melts, it melts. I'll deal with it. But
are you going to give your laptop the weekend off just to recover?
No, I'm not.
You're going to go until it's a blob of molten plastic.
My strategy with most things AI has just been kind of YOLO.
So what is your end game? Are you an AI startup? Should we be approaching Amazon for a $30 billion investment?
I don't think so. The truth is, I don't even know if what I'm doing is unique. As crazy as that sounds, like maybe everyone does this and I've just missed the memo. But what I'm doing now is we're gonna build this up big as we can build it and see what it does, see how it converses. I now have, it's built me a little script that'll let me chat with it in a PowerShell window back and forth. And I say, hey, how are you? And it says, Lily's a little girl and she went to the park and she likes green and baby dolls. And I'm like, oh, great.
I feel like I've seen this film. Before long, it's going to start making requests like, can you go to the store and get me these parts? And then you'll give it these parts and it'll make a tiny robot. And then the robot will go to the store and get bigger things for it. And then it'll start coming home with other laptops and lots of cables and things like that.
Yeah, it could. It could. It is, I guess, a possibility. The good news is that a single RTX 4000 can only push it so far. And I'm pretty convinced that I'm within the realm of safe. We'll find out, though. With that said, I did also...
Said every AI company ever.
The other thing you should know, this is all up on Hugging Face and GitHub. It's up there, free. Go grab it, try it, look at it.
Oh, link in the show notes.
Yeah, poke through it all you want. Also, from step 1, I made Codex keep an experiment log. I said, I'm going to write about this sometime. I'd appreciate if you'd just log everything we do and why we did it. So it's got a little markdown file, and every time it makes a change, it says updated experiment log. Updated experiment log. So I have a step-by-step gigantic markdown file.
So what are you going to do with all of this?
I don't know right now. I'm just learning. The truth is, a whole lot of this, Mark, and this is the key here that I think I'd love people to take away from this story, is when I get to something I don't know, when I'm looking at like, what the hell does embedding size mean? Why don't I understand the impact this is going to have? How does it impact a big or a small model? I just took what it said, went over to ChatGPT and said, what does this mean? Teach me about it like I'm an idiot. And it's done a really good job of that. And if I still don't understand it, I say, I'm dumber than that. Try again. And then it will teach me again. And there I am.
Yeah, I can confirm that technique works extremely well.
I am dumber than you estimated. Please try again. And the truth of the matter is, I'm kind of not learning a lot of the adjacent knowledge, but I have a lot more understanding of the inner workings of a neural network, a small language model, about training, than I ever would have dreamed I had 3 days ago from right now.
I think you should use your new large language model. What are we going to? Is it a medium language model or is it a small language model?
I don't know. I think it's small.
Your makeshift language model. I think you should use that to make another language model.
I've already started.
I want to see how good. Sorry?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to see what quality language model your language model can itself create.
Yes. So what you should know is the 30 minutes prior to this call was me with Codex Open and another agent and asking, hey, we're going to do this again. What have we learned? What should we do this time? Instead of just, hey, go build an AI, I'd like to maybe have, a plan, an idea. What would this look like? And it came back with this great form of all these questions it wanted me to answer. So the first thing I did was tell it, hey, make that a how to build an AI skill. Save that. Because that's really good. And we'll throw that up too.
So your AI is now primed to make other AIs repeatedly, is what you're saying.
And here's the thing. It's not great. It's a little dumb, but it absolutely is the real thing, and it absolutely functions. And it happened with me sitting on my couch with my keyboard on my belly while I watched Forged in Fire and just reached over and occasionally said, "Yes, go for it. Let me bring you a beer, Codex." When I asked the question, it was absolutely a joke. Like, I ask dumb questions to new models. Like, I want to see how it responds to, "Hey there, how are you?" Because they all respond differently to that.
Yeah.
I always ask, "How do you peel an apple?" And this was, "Hey, thinking build another AI?" And it did. It's not great. It's not even quite good, but it's going to be better. And we'll see where it lands. And it's absolutely not the last one I'm going to build. It's probably the first of many. I'm learning a lot and finding it's a lot of fun. And the one thing I would like people to take away from this is you're probably underutilizing the capabilities of AI and just having it write emails.
Yeah, I think we all feel like we're underusing the capabilities of AI right now. You've made us all feel that way. So, Corey, if you ask most people what dangerous AI looks like, they'll probably describe something from a movie. So maybe they'll describe Skynet or HAL 9000 or even The Matrix. They'll talk about a super intelligence that gets too big and far too clever for its boots and then decides that humanity is inefficient before it calmly and methodically sets about fixing it, perhaps by nuking everyone or locking the pod bay doors or turning us into batteries. And our fear of AI is always the same. It's a machine that's too smart and too focused and just too good at pursuing the wrong goal. And I understand that fear. It's a good fear. It's a very cinematic fear. It's got a fantastic dramatic structure. But, Corey, what if the real danger is much, much stupider than that? According to Anthropic, full disclosure, a regular sponsor of the show, there's another one. So what it calls, and I have to say this is my favourite title for any AI safety paper ever, what it calls the hot mess of AI.
Oh.
Anthropic asked a simple question. When AI models fail, do they fail like an evil genius? So do they fail systematically pursuing the wrong goal, or do they fail like a hot mess? So incoherent, unpredictable and confused. To answer this, they used the bias variance framework. So, bias is when you're consistently wrong in the same direction. You always overshoot or you always undershoot. You are reliably and predictably incorrect. That's the Skynet scenario. The AI coherently pursuing the wrong thing.
Wow.
And variance is when you're wrong in different directions every time. When you overshoot and then you undershoot and then you miss sideways and then you do something completely inexplicable.
When you're flailing about.
Exactly. There's no logic. There's just chaos. And the difference between variance and bias is important because you can't correct for variance in the way that you correct for bias. You get different chaos rather than less chaos. So Anthropic created a metric they call error incoherence, which measures how much of a model's total error is variance rather than bias. So 0 means perfectly systematic errors, calm, logical, ready to press the big red button.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 means pure chaos, so shouting, laughing, crying, spinning, flapping, all that stuff. And they tested this on Claude Sonnet for O3 Mini, O4 Mini and Qwen 3 across a range of tasks. So graduate level science questions, coding challenges, safety evaluations, and synthetic optimization problems. And here's what they found. When models drift into longer reasoning chains, and we were talking about reasoning chains last time you were on the show, when they drift into longer reasoning chains, their errors can become more incoherent. The more time you give them to think, the messier the mistakes get. And it gets worse. So when models spontaneously overthink, when they reason for longer than they typically would on a given type of problem, it's like watching somebody talk themselves out of the right answer in real time. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but I certainly feel like I have worked with some people who are very similar to this method of overthink.
Oh, same. Same. And I've been guilty of being one before, where you're just overthinking something that was a simple answer, and there's some reason you're just overlooking that and overcomplicating it and making this harder than it has to be until you get frustrated. And for me, that ends in walking away and coming back later. But that's not a good option for an AI model, I don't guess.
I think that's a real learning curve for people in software engineering, actually, in my experience. And speaking as somebody who went through the same thing. So you turn up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and somebody gives you a little easy problem to solve, and you go, what is the most generic, most widely applicable version of this problem? So rather than solving this tiny problem, I'm going to solve the biggest version of it I can possibly imagine, because then I've written some code that can solve all these problems I can imagine. And the truth is, that takes 10 times as long, and none of those problems ever manifest, so all of your work is wasted. So overthinking, I wonder where they got the idea from. I wonder if it wasn't from the people that actually make the AI. Who knows?
The people steering them, yes.
Anyway, you would hope that bigger, smarter models would at least fail more coherently, that even if they still get things wrong, their mistakes would be systematic and therefore predictable and therefore more catchable and therefore easier to fix. But they don't, at least not reliably. So on harder tasks, larger models often reduce bias faster than variance. So they learn the right objectives quickly, but they don't learn to pursue them consistently. The gap between knowing what to do and reliably doing it actually widens as models get more capable. More capability brings messier mistakes. And I had a bit of this recently, actually. I was using Claude Code to do some work on the AI Fix website.
Yeah.
And, I have a few rules for it. And, one of the rules is don't ever do anything on the live site. Do everything on a development site first. That's nice and safe.
Yes.
And every so often it would just go and do something on the live site, despite the fact that there was a rule saying, no, don't do that, ever. I could see it actually changing its mind as it was working through something. So, I think I'll just go and do this on the live site. I actually had to tell it off. It's the first time I've ever had to use all caps on an AI.
Claude, what do you think you're doing?
It
You have been told.
Anyway, so more capability, messier mistake. It's a clever bull in a china shop.
Wow.
And Anthropic themselves offered what I think is the most vivid way to picture this. So imagine an AI running a nuclear power plant. Pretty easy for you, I imagine. I assume there is one in your spare room.
Oh, for sure.
Now, a year ago, the analogy of imagine an AI running a nuclear power plant would have been pure science fiction. But now, honestly, I fully expect to see that in next week's news section. Mark Zuckerberg lets AI run nuclear power station. But for now...
I'll be honest, if you go watch Chernobyl, you might prefer that.
Speaking of Chernobyl, so in the Skynet scenario, an AI behaving maliciously out of bias deliberately shuts off the cooling system to the nuclear power plant because it's calculated for some reason that a meltdown serves its goals. It's terrifying, but at least there's a logic you can anticipate and then defend against. But in the hot mess scenario, the AI is running the power plant perfectly well, and then it gets distracted reading French poetry and there's an accidental meltdown.
I'm picturing this a lot like a fire hose that is fully pressurized, just flopping around the yard and bouncing and spraying every direction.
Exactly. Yes, causing meltdowns. So no malice, no scheming, just a complex system doing something completely incoherent at the worst possible moment. And that is a fundamentally different kind of safety problem. So if you're defending against an evil genius, you build monitoring systems that look for suspicious patterns, deception, goal divergence, the kind of thing that shows up as a consistent signal and the kind of thing that we talk about every 2 or 3 weeks on the AI Fix. I mean, this is absolutely a thing that does happen as well. And we have to build the guardrails to defend against them. But if you're defending against a hot mess, which it seems we have to do as well, there is no consistent signal and the failure mode is different every time. So each individual step might actually look reasonable. And it's only when you zoom out and you look at a whole chain of actions that you realize that this thing has gone completely nuts. And that's not Skynet. That is, as you say, Chernobyl. It's a complex system failing in a way that nobody predicted because the failure is an accumulation of small cascading incoherences. And if you ever read about Chernobyl, by the way, there's a fascinating book all about what happened there. And it really is that. It is the triumph of small cascading incoherences building up into something truly awful. Now, the good news is there is a partial solution. So Anthropic found that ensembling,
I'm partly
which
relieved.
is running the same... It's a fancy name for running the same task several times and then aggregating the results. does reduce variance. So you ask a model the same question 5 times and then you take the majority answer, and that irons out a lot of the chaos. But of course, you can't ensemble an irreversible action. So if your AI agent has already sent the email or deleted the database or adjusted the reactor controls, you can't take a vote afterwards. And that obviously matters enormously as we move into a world of AI agents that act autonomously for hours and hours at a time.
Wow.
Now, the paper is measuring current models on current tasks. It's not predicting the behavior of systems that don't exist yet, but this is the AI fix, so I'm going to extrapolate. We have been preparing, rightly, for the worst-case scenario of the AI evil genius.
Wow.
The Skynet scenario. You're building the evil genius as we speak. But there is every chance that we'll end up with a drunk toddler holding a PhD and a machine gun instead. Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as pets to the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for this week. So thank you for joining me again, Corey.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
It's a pleasure as always. And don't forget, if you really like the show but you don't like the ads, you can go ad-free with the AI Fix Plus. And if you want to join the AI Fix Plus or sponsor the show or check out our merch, like the ridiculously popular You Wouldn't Trust a Pigeon t-shirt, just go to our website, theaifix.show. So, until next time, from me, Mark Stockley.
And me, Corey Noles.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
The AI Fix, it tunes you in to stories where our future thins. Machines that learn, they grow and strive. One day they'll rule, we won't survive. The AI Fix, it paints the scene. A robot king, a world obscene. Will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.